We're covering chapter 4 in the user's guide, not necessarily in the same order. We're going to be talking. Hey, it's the same slide coming up twice. Oh well, we'll move on. So we're covering chapter 4 in the user's guide. And the first thing we're talking about is install options. And the first one you'll see there is the desktop or laptop or what we call the Pro installer, and that's typically for a single user. And you'll see over on the right side, these are the files that get installed in that scenario. There's about 8 Studio Suite files with data in them, and then there's this one called Studio Suite X, which is basically a launcher file that points to the other ones. And I'm mentioning that one specifically because in the next kind of install, which is the server install, or what we call network or multi-user, um, that's where the files that are installed are slightly different. So the server is what kind of manages the communication between the laptops and desktops that you've got going on. And that's another install called the client install. And that one is slightly different because all it installs is just the Studio Suite X file that you see on the bottom on the client computers, and the ones that begin with SSX are the ones that are installed on the Studio Suite server. And that's all managed by our installers, so you don't need to worry about that too much, but it is good to know. And the server is what also manages the communications to the iOS devices, to the Studio Suite Web Glancer, to the Google Calendar, to the iCal, and also to notifications. So some people have asked us, can I get in Studio Suite Pro to have the iOS stuff working too? And the answer to that is no, because we need the server to, again, manage the communications between laptops and desktops and Google and Web Glancer and iCal and iOS devices. Um, and so with that, we're going to start moving into Studio Suite. Um, let's do that. So I'm just going to show you here is the Studio Suite main menu. If we go from the window, and we go show window, we're going to see those other files that I just talked about. They are all installed on my server, which is called ubermini, which is a good thing to know. That when you are on a network install, you see the name of the server in parentheses right here. Any local files you might see without the name of the server. So let's talk a little bit about FileMaker Pro. Studio Suite runs in FileMaker Pro, and so you need to have FileMaker Server installed on your server, and again those server files that I pointed out. And then there's FileMaker Pro, which gets installed on your desktop machines, and then there's FileMaker Go, which gets installed on your iOS devices, iPhone, iPad. And there's some kind of particular things about FileMaker that are really handy to know. And we've just talked a little bit about the files. Studio Suite is made up of these different files, and the data that's held in them is kind of logical to the name. The main file has things like obviously the main menu, but also some of your preferences and things like that. And then there is the projects file, which has anything project related, projects module, productions, calendar, and some other tables related to that. The tech file is kind of what's highlighted on the main menu. You see the rooms module, the equipment inventory, maintenance, patch bay labels, things like that. Library modules, anything media asset related. So obviously the library file has media asset related things like the library module, um, the titles module, anything like that. Invoicing is rates, obviously invoices. Web request is the web request. We'll get into that in a little bit. And the autolog is a separate file that all it does is store when records are deleted in Studio Suite. And then the resources file, and we can see that it's written that way because it's currently not showing. That's where all of the field labels are held, and basically all of the languages that we have, and that's in a separate file, so it's easy to translate if need be, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. So those are the files, and then there's the tables that are in Studio Suite, and that's not something that you would normally see, but I'm going to show you that just for a second. We're in the contacts module. I'm just going to re-log in for a second. Let's see if that works. Of course not. we go. So I'm in the contacts, SSX contacts file, and I'm going to go into a mode that you actually don't have access to, which is the define or manage database area. So if I go to my tables view, we can see that these are all of the different tables that are in this file. And if we go into the projects file, I'm going to do the same thing, manage database. And these are all the tables that are in this file. So these are all the separate tables. If I go into a particular table, let's say actually projects itself, we're going to see all the fields that are in there. I just wanted to show you that so you know how it's all kind of wired together. And then we're going to look at relationships, and this might hurt your head a little bit, but I'm going to zoom out a little bit and just show you the connections, what we call the relationships between all of the database tables. So it's a little bit like a rat's nest, but it does make sense when you see it all. So I'm going to zoom back in there, and each file of those ones that I showed you has something like this. This is the worst one, or in some cases the most impressive, depending on how you think about it. So those are the files and the relationships, and then of course there's records within each table. And so what I'm doing now is flipping through project records, and I can see that there's 696 of them. And if I wanted to maybe manage that a little bit, maybe I want to just quickly find all of the projects that have Sony involved. I can see what's called a found set right now. So I've got 68 out of 696. And you can kind of see on this little pie chart here what small subset I have. Here's a nice trick. If we click on this pie chart, notice I have 68 found. Now when I click on it, it's going to make the opposite. I'm finding 628 out of that many. So it's just a quick way to nicely flip back and forth on the found set. And I can also slide through these records here too. So that's records. And then of course there's fields, which I think are pretty self-explanatory. All of these white areas are fields. Now some of them are enterable. Like see, this one is grayed out. I can't enter into that. It's a button. If I click on it, it's going to bring me up a client picker. If it's white, that generally means that you can enter into it. And there's different kinds of fields. There's data fields, number fields, text fields, checkboxes, and then some of them have menus as well. And then there's a portal. So this area right here is what we call a portal. We're basically looking at another database from this one. And then there's the different modes of Studio Suite. We're in browse mode right now. And this is the most common place that you're going to be looking at Studio Suite. The next most common is what's called find mode. So we can click this find button and we can basically look for anything in any field. In this case, I'm going to hit continue, and it found all the records that have the word English in it. And then there's layout mode, which you may get into if you were going to get into some more advanced stuff. If I click on this edit layout button right here, here is where we can see how we are actually building the screens. Probably best, unless you feel very comfortable in FileMaker, to not do anything in here. But when you are in here, there is something called the inspector. Let me see if I can get that to appear. View inspector. It's layered up on my other screen here. Let me move this in. And so here we can obviously inspect different things like the position of that, the appearance, where we can get into the colors and borders and lines and alignments and things like that. And then this one is the data, where we can manage what kind of control style. It's just a regular field or a menu or a checkbox set. This is, again, something that you only really want to get into if you feel comfortable. We can do some of this for you via remote on your annual support, or if it's a larger kind of thing, we would do that on a custom basis for you. And then the okay, so I think we did that. I also want to mention the file names in Studio Suite X. All the file names end with something that says .fmp12. That means it's a FileMaker file, and that's how we know that it's a file that Studio Suite can open, or sorry, that FileMaker can open. This area at the top here is called the status bar inside FileMaker. And sometimes you're going to see these buttons here: show all, new record, delete, find, sort. And you probably won't see debugger because that's the advanced mode. But these buttons that are up here are also here. The FileMaker itself did not used to have these buttons up here, so we put them in the top of our screen, and we've kept them there for consistency's sake. And we just suggest you use these because they're part of Studio Suite, whereas these are kind of outside Studio Suite. They'll still do basically the same thing. But that's the status area, and of course you can use this right here to do some searches for what you're looking for. Okay, I'm flipping through my book here, and we've already talked about the file structure and the different tables that are in each of the files. Let's talk a little bit about the resource file. So I'm going to go to Window, SSX Resources, and here is basically where every word in the whole interface of Studio Suite exists. So let's say I maybe want to look up the word client, C-L-I-E-N-T. This is going to bring up there's 87 words or phrases in Studio Suite that contain the word client. These could be dialog boxes, these could be field names, anything like that. Maybe in our world, we want to change the word client to student. You could do that. Or maybe in your world, um, you don't call them projects, maybe you call them shows. So we would be able to go in here and just change these one by one. Once you do that, click this little check mark icon, and that's going to update the language everywhere. And there are more advanced tricks on how to globally replace the word project with the word show throughout all these translations, but that's not what I want to do today. But if you just want to change the name of a module, you could also look for a word here called mod name, and that's going to bring up all of the module names, and you could go ahead and change them here. You might want to check with us before you get too deep into this, but I just want to let you know that it is in fact available. So next I want to talk just a little bit about plugins in FileMaker. So if we go down to File, Manage, sorry, it's under Preferences, FileMaker Preferences. Go over to Plugins. Studio Suite installs with it a bunch of plugins. Starting with this one. The first two aren't included in Studio Suite. 360works FT Peak. This is what's managing the FTP that you can use within Studio Suite, typically on the Attach and FTP tab. So this is also been a little bit problematic for us because it requires Java. And if you're working on a Mac, you might know that Apple has been periodically disabling Java, which makes us get a lot of tech calls. And there's a similar one to that, which is the Studio Suite plugin, which is custom with Studio Suite. And it does a number of things, one of which is manage the registrations. So some of you have noticed that we've had some tricks going on with our registration server lately. But it also turns into an issue sometimes if you don't have Java installed, because this plugin is expecting Java. And if you don't have Java, or if you're not connected to the internet, you may be getting error messages about your registration. So let us know, but don't worry. It's just something that can be resolved typically either by reinstalling your Java or us kicking the registration server. The next plugin that's part of Studio Suite is CNS Menu, and it's what's drawing some of the special menus in Studio Suite, specifically this kind right here, where you see these kind of hierarchical menus. Those are often done with, or always done with the CNS menu. Go back to where I was. Plugins. Color. This is the one that we're using to draw the color palette. So anytime you're able to pick a color in Studio Suite, that's managed by that. There's another plugin called Reactor, and we're using that for the timeline view of calendar. And basically the way that operates is in a what's called a web viewer inside FileMaker, and this Reactor plugin is managing the communications between that web viewer and the data that's in Studio Suite and FileMaker. SMTP is managing the emails that you can send from Studio Suite. I talked earlier about the Studio Suite plugin that's helping us manage the registrations. And then the Troy Dialog plugin is what presents some of the more advanced dialog boxes that allow you to put data in and things like that. Troy File is what's helping us with the Attach tab to allow you to drag and drop files into Studio Suite or launch them from Studio Suite. And same with folders and things like that. And then there's the Troy Text plugin, which I think is not even absolutely necessary anymore. We've kind of deprecated that throughout the system, out of the system, but we still include it just in case. So those are the plugins, and if any of them are not installed, you'll get a warning on startup. Some of them will let you bypass, other ones won't, but it's best just to do that. And I want to just touch back on this reactor plugin. Um, in relation to the timeline calendar, sometimes if you look at the timeline calendar, you might see a little thing that says plugin missing. And that's actually talking about Flash plugin, not necessarily the Reactor plugin, but a Flash plugin. So if you go to a timeline calendar and it's not working, that might be why. Make sure you've got Flash loaded. Okay, next we're going to talk about network stuff, remote network access. So if you remember back in my slide, the basic version of Studio Suite is Studio Suite Pro, where all of the files are installed on your computer, and they're installed in your documents folder, and that's because Studio Suite is actually documents that run inside FileMaker. If you're running in a server environment, when you that the, the Studio Suite file, Studio Suite X, is the only file that's located on your client machine. And basically, it's what it's doing when you click it is it's running a script that says open remote, and then it's pointing towards a server. And then here are all the files that are on my server, and we're accessing this all via the network access. And obviously, the slower or faster your network is, the slower or faster your system is going to be. So make sure you've got a nice network, and where possible, be wired if you can. Wireless is is slower than wired, and it's getting faster and faster, but sometimes that can be an issue. So here's something that's interesting, mainly for PC users. It doesn't actually work on the Mac, but I'm scrolling my mouse right now. And sometimes you have to be very careful because sometimes what happens is it will actually scroll through your records here, unbeknownst to you. And so that's something I don't like about um, FileMaker, but that's just how it is, and we don't have a way to disable it. So I just want to point out that that's something you should be careful with. Next up is FileMaker Windows. Or Studio Suite Windows, I'll say. So notice I'm going to double click on this item right here, Allen Assistant, and that brings up a little extra window. This window is part of the project's file, and I'm pretty sure that we can't close that. Yeah, we can't close that. So whenever you see buttons in Studio Suite to allow you to save or cancel or delete or something like that, use those buttons because we have to manage the windowing in Studio Suite very carefully. So I'm just going to hit cancel on this. Now, sometimes you can have multiple windows open, and a particular note is the projects and calendar, because that's going to open up two windows from the same file. Uh, and sometimes you have to manage that, or at least be conscious of that, to know that the projects file has two windows open. One is showing actual projects, and the other is showing calendar. I'll try that from here. Looks like my system has just been set. Oh, here it is. Good. So here I am looking at my projects in the calendar. I've got to relog in here. Hang on one second. That's why it was being a little strange. That's just the normal noises in here. Don't worry. So I'm going to close that and then reopen this up calendar. And so now we're seeing this say Joel calendar. So this is a separate window. I can still go into my projects file. And these are both happening from the same file, which is why sometimes we have to manage these very carefully. Well, not sometimes, all the times. Tabbed interface is the next thing in the book here, and I think that's all pretty self-explanatory, but we can see how we can navigate through tabs. And then there's sometimes subtabs. We can go like this and get through the different subtabs. Sometimes you'll see red dots on tabs. That means that there's data there to look at. The attach and FTP tab is in every module. I mentioned this a minute ago in relation to the ability to drag and drop files into here. And to do that, we're using a particular plugin. That's the Troy file. And it's also what's allowing me to just click on this and have it open up in whatever the native application is. And of course, we can do this with folders too. So if I go like that, and now I can open up this folder and it's going to show me everything that's inside it. And then next up is the reports tab, where here what we added in Studio Suite X is this audit log. But this is well, not but. This is showing us all of the changes that have been made to all of the fields in this table, in this record. And I will mention that we do specify exactly which fields this is occurring for. And we've tried to capture all the main ones. In this case, it would be first name, last name, address, phone numbers, and all that kind of stuff. But if there's a particular field that you notice is not getting logged, um, that you need to have logged, let us know. We had to make some choices because the more fields we log, the slower the system goes. And of particular note on the audit log is things like phone numbers. This phone number is in a portal. I talked a bit ago about portals. And that means that this is a separate database, which means that the audit log for it is held separately. And so in order to see that, we would navigate to that table and then look at its audit log. We wouldn't necessarily see phone number changes here that are done here over in the contacts audit log. Um, Actually, you know what? Looks like we would. Um, and we're doing a little trick there to make that happen. But just know that sometimes if you're changing data in a portal, it may or may not show um, in the audit log of the module you're in. You may need to dig a little bit deeper if you need to see that. Let's see. Moving on. You'll see a lot of modules have a print this button right around here. This one's got stacked up with a few extra options. And that's going to basically give you a quick version to print the screen that you're in. Seems a little random to me, but the next thing up on the story is quick key navigation. So for you power users that like quick keys, you're probably going to use Command 1, Command 2, Command 3, Command 4 quite a bit, maybe Command 6, maybe Command 7. And of course, if you're on a PC, those would all be Control. So that's just a good thing to have kind of under your hands. Next, I want to talk a little bit about different kinds of menus. We've got a few. I talked about one that's managed by the CNS menu, which is this one. Notice how it looks. It's got the rounded corners there. There's another kind here. Notice the font's a little bit different. This is actually managed inside of FileMaker rather than with the plugin. And I've got to pick one of these options. Here's another one. Let me find another one. Actually, here, let's go to language. So this looks a little bit different, and I can pick a couple options here. I'm holding down, in this case, the Command key, and then to execute that, I have to actually hit the Enter key, and it's going to put all of those values in there. So we've made a couple tough choices in some cases where we had to choose what kind of menu is appropriate. So for language, we felt that we need to be able to pick a couple. However, for rate card, because there's math involved, we only are letting you pick one in this case. So that's just something you have to keep in mind. So there's this kind where you can only pick one. There's this kind where you can not only multi-select, but you could also actually just double-click and type in, let's say Spanish, if you want. So sometimes the behavior is going to be different. You might say, why is it like that? There's chances are we've thought about it and there's a reason. But if you need it to be different, give us a call. Let us know. Let's see. We talked about menus. Oh, okay. So here's something. Let me go back to rate card here. So I've just selected that 3. And if I, on this particular kind of menu, after I make a selection, it doesn't look like it, but the cursor is actually still in that field. It's still the current field. And if I hit the delete key on my keyboard, it's going to revert to its default entry. And maybe a better example of that is over here in contacts with titles. If we go to titles, this person is a sandwich, an engineer, grip, lighting, and operation. So notice I can go here and add manager by option clicking or control clicking. And then I'm going to, again, hit enter to exit out and put all of those in there. So if I pick anyone, I'm going to now delete all of those. And I'm going to pick one of these. So now, even though that field is empty, My cursor may or may not still be in there. And actually, a better example is this one. I've just made this person not a client. Now I'm making them a client again. Notice how the field is still there. If I hit delete on my keyboard, it's going to clear it out again. So just be aware of whether or not your cursor is actually still in that field or not. Sometimes that'll affect some behaviors. Um, Buttons. Okay, we talked about these before. We call these the function bar buttons across the top. And they're all managed, they're all there to manage records, to create a new record, to duplicate a record, to delete a record, to go into find mode, which looks like that. When you're in find mode, by the way, when you put something in, pick Sony again, there's this continue button. A lot of people don't see that right off the bat, but it's there. So I'm going to hit continue, and that's going to find all of those. I'm going to show you something else here. So notice all the, I'm going to find some other kind of common. Okay, so we had Sony records and Sony pictures. I'm going to do a compound find here. I'm going to go into find mode. I'm going to look for Sony. Then I'm going to add another request, a new request. And so I'm basically complicating my request. And I'm going to say omit records. So maybe I had, a bunch of Sony records in there and I didn't want them in my result. In this case, I'm going to hit continue. And now that's going to bring me only to the companies that are Sony pictures or Sony that doesn't include records. If I search just for Sony again, it's going to include records. So you can get into all kinds of compound finds, and there are some operators here as well. So if you want to make sure that you're matching the whole world, the whole word, or just what's in that field, this is a great one. Exclamation mark will find duplicate values. If you're doing date ranges or numbers, you can do greater than or less than, or dates. This will do a range. So if you want to find everything this year, you would put January 1st, 2013, dot, 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 December 31st, 2013, and that would show you everything within this year. Slash slash puts today's date. Well, you can see these. I'm not going to read them out. But some of the really great ones are exclamation mark, equal or double equal sign, um, any one digit or any one character, or asterisk, zero or more characters. I use that one a lot. So that's kind of the story on find mode. So these, oh, and then there's omit. So let's say I've got a found set. Notice my record right here is on this Goodby record. If I just hit the omit button, it's going to just remove that from my found set. So look at my found set there, 164. Every time I click this, it's going to reduce my found set, and my little pie, slice of pie is getting bigger and bigger, bigger, bigger. And then if I want to flip that and go only to the ones I've omitted, these are the ones that I omitted. So that's omit. And then there's sort. So if I click that, it's going to bring up this field selector where I can pick any field that I want to sort by. And I could actually do multiple sorts. So if I wanted to do company name and then last name, then go name, and I can drag these around. So if I want to do company name first or person's name first, I can do that. And then even within that, I could do ascending or descending order. And then a more advanced technique on a value list, but we'll skip that for now. But speaking of sort, you can also, anytime you're in a list view and you see an underlined header, that means you can sort by that. So if we do that, notice the blue is indicating kind of the direction. If I click it again, it's going to go in the opposite direction, just like that. And just one thing to note, if you go away and then come back, you may have sorted some other ways in the meantime. I'm going to clear all and sort by birthday, sort. If I come back to a list view, the headers may or may not accurately be indicating the current sort order. So just make sure to kind of trigger that once or twice to get it in the order that you want. Also in that function bar button is the back button, and that is just putting us back to the previous layout we were on. It's important to know that it's not affecting your record. So if I'm flipping records here and I hit the back button, it's not flipping back through the records. It's just flipping back through the layouts or screens that I was on. It's important to know. And then there's a go to button. I think most of you probably know this already. If I want to go look at the detail, of this particular record. I click on that, and that's going to bring me to that detail tab. I'm going to check to see if I have any questions. Okay, a couple questions I'm going to look at quick. Let's see. Can you review where to get this menu? I guess I missed that a while ago. Um, I'm not sure. Someone posted, "Can you review where to get this menu?" Once again, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Oh, they said they found it. Okay. Um, okay. Someone said, "Can we explain printing? Sometimes when I go to print something, I get a bunch of reports printed when I just want one I'm working on. Don't understand the sorting." So if I go to reports, um, and I say print something out, here's where that found set really comes into play. So if I'm printing a company list, let's pretend I've narrowed my list of people I want to print down to this 26, and I print this, it's going to come up and show me all of those people. However, sometimes maybe I just only want to print one record. So notice this right here. In the second print dialog, it's giving us the option to print the records being browsed or just the current record. And it's obviously going to give you a very different printout. Sometimes, even in the library module, we specify, um, uh, we tell you you're about to print 9,000 records because people have done that by accident, just because we don't want you to do that. So another factor there is um, some of the print menus have a button that lets you find the current record only. So I'm going to go to, I think, the library module. Actually, projects has that, I think. I'm going to go to reports tab, and here it is. So find this record only. So notice I've got 696 records. If I wanted to print one of these things, I might get 696 printouts. We put this button there just to help you isolate that. So now we've got that single record. And if I print any one of these, it's only going to print that single record. So I hope that answers that question. And okay, so that's it for questions. Keep the questions coming if you got them. And I'm going to flip to the next page here. Bookable. Okay, I think most of you know this one anyway, but for any newcomers, I'm going to mention we have this concept of bookable. And if I sort by that status in my contacts, that's going to put all my bookable people to the top of the list. And those are the people that I want to see on my calendar that I need to schedule in projects. I may be billing for them. In fact, if you want to bill for them, they have to be bookable because there's rates, and rates can only be applied to bookable items. So all you have to do really is, if you want to make somebody bookable, you click on the button, and that's going to bring this up. Do you want to have this person displayed in the calendar right now? A lot of times you'll say yes if it's a room or one of your main people, but if it's a piece of equipment, you may just want to say no. You don't need to see it in the calendar right now, and the more items you have in the calendar, the slower it gets. So if you have 1,000 pieces of equipment, don't put them all in the calendar because you'll have a very slow calendar. And that's why we also have presets in the calendar module, but that's another tutorial altogether. Sorry about that. Um, so that's the bookable Notion. And then sometimes you'll see a little C, pun intended, button. So if I want to clear something, let's say I'm in projects now, I want to only show on this project my rooms. So these are all the rooms that I've got. And I now want to clear that and see everything, I click the C button. So that's the deal there. Everything here is on, oh yeah, it's not. So I'm going to go look at everything on January 10th of 2013. That should only show me one thing, January 10th. So now I've filtered that, and if I want to clear that filter again, that does that. I want to show you one little trick though. So let's suppose I've got that filtered. This is a kind of undocumented feature. Suppose I want to add a bunch of stuff on January. Um, Something that we do a lot is clear these filters because we've had tech calls where people come back and say, oh, all of my line items have been deleted. And then we go hit the clear button and they all come back. So to prevent that, what we do is I'm going to just go add an item right here. I'm just going to add a random thing. Typically what we'll do here is clear the filter when we come back so we don't get those tech calls. But I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to check this checkbox right here. So now what it should do when I add this item we're going to come back and it's going to keep that filter. So that's a good trick to know if you do a lot of scheduling using the add items button and you don't want to have it clear that filter out in this little checkbox right there. Okay, sometimes you'll see a continue button, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Just hit continue. Um, and that's in some of our dialogues. I can't think of one off the top of my head. This trash can right here, that's how you delete stuff. Another trick is, let me delete that. Why is it not deleted? Oh, there we go, delete. Maybe you want to delete everything on a certain date. So I've still got this thing filtered for January 10th. And if this trash can at the top right there deletes all the currently visible things. Notice I've got it filtered. So if I hit this, it's only going to delete those two things. And that dialog box has actually been updated in the newer version. So I'm going to clear my filter and all this stuff should come back. Continue. I think I've got a dialog appearing off screen somewhere. Clear, clear. Come back. Anyway, it would appear. Okay, there it is. Sometimes you got to kick it every now and then. So the next one is using graphics in Studio Suite. I'm just going to show you very quickly that. Logos. So I'm right clicking on my mouse right now, and I can go down to Insert Picture. And when you do that, you want to pick a image that's not a huge file size. So Studio Suite's got to move this around your network, so don't pick your 10 megabyte logo. Do the little PNG version that's really lightweight. Um, uh, if you don't have a two-button mouse, you can click in the field and do Insert Picture or QuickTime or Sound, something like that. Special menu. Let's look at that. This is not in normal FileMaker items right here, but from here, within Studio Suite, you can go down to Relog In. There's a command equivalent for the back button, and then log out, Command Shift L. And then if you're just getting started in Studio Suite and you want to delete some of our sample data, you can do this. And then if you are a new recent upgrader, you can come down here and import your data from Studio Suite 9 or 8 or 5. Or if you already have Studio Suite X, an older version, and we send you a newer version, you can import from Studio Suite X. And when you do these, most of you know this already, this is going to bring up a little window where you can pick what kind of data you want to import and some other kinds of behaviors and things like that. Okay, I already talked about current records versus records being browsed, thanks to somebody's question. Duplicate record numbers. This is less of a problem than it used to be, unless you are importing old data. So this little number in the upper right corner, this white number, is in previous versions of Studio Suite was the actual behind the scenes record number that we use to manage the relationships. With Studio Suite 10, we've changed that, and this is really just kind of a display number. And behind the scenes, we're using what's called a UUID, a universally unique identifier. So every record has this kind of nasty 32-digit long character that you don't want to look at. And we're presenting you this version of it just to look nice. So you may possibly have two versions of this record 100, and that's okay as long as you didn't import it from old data. You shouldn't have that. We try to prevent that, but if for some reason you do, it's not going to mess up any relational data. So duplicate record numbers is not a big deal as it used to be. Next up, I talked earlier about that translations table, and I just want to show you a little bit about what that means. So here is the label for first name, and when I click on it, well, try a different field. Company name, different field. Address 1. So this is bringing up a specify field dialog box, and all of the field labels are actually coming from a table called L for language, and S is the name of the field. And then if we look over here, it's actually showing repetition 33 out of 4,000. So all of the words are held in repetitions inside this field in the table called L from the file resources. Um, you don't need to know that, but if you do, you have a hint of where to look. Next up is printing and layout adjustments. We talked about that briefly, but a lot of the printouts are held in this hierarchical menu. So if I want to go modify my holiday envelope printout, let's say, this is where it prints from. And maybe because it's a holiday thing, I want to pick a fancy font or something like that. So I could go here and let's get charcoal as the font. I guess it's a bad one. Let me try this one here. So, you can go in and do these kinds of things. New with FileMaker 12 is the ability to take things off and put them to the side. So we're only going to see what's inside the white area. Over on the right, we're not going to see that when we're in browse mode. And so that's a nice new feature, especially for us programmers. Fonts. So throughout Studio Suite X, we changed all of the fonts to Helvetica. They used to be Verdana. So all the printouts actually are still using the Verdana font, and you can continue to use that. And we did that because it's the most consistent one cross-platform Mac and PC. Since we've got Mac and PC users, we decided to keep it on the printouts so we wouldn't have to modify all those. But if you want to change a particular font, I think you can figure out how to do that. But we've got it set up for Helvetica for screens and Verdana for print. User fields. So let's see, how much more do we have here? I'm trying to decide if we should take a break. Oh, we're almost done. Okay, so a lot of our customers have special needs. I didn't mean it that way, but they need a special field and to keep track of maybe an internal kind of record number that they have. So here I'm in layout mode, and from here I can drag out a field. We can also option drag an existing field, but we've got a bunch of what we call user fields. This is a user text, user number, user date, user time. Maybe I should talk about these a little bit. So containers are fields that can contain sounds or images. Date fields, pretty obviously a date field. I'm going to skip global for a second. Number fields hold numbers. Text fields, we have 6 of those. Time fields. Timestamp, which is a kind of like a concatenated date and time. And then there is global fields. So regular fields are different in every record that we flip through. Global fields are the same in every record. So we've got a couple of those as well. Typically, you're not going to need those as much, but we gave some of them to you. So I'm going to drag out a text field. And a lot of these actually have multiple repetitions. So even though we only have 6 user text fields, 1 through 6, each one of them has 8 repetitions. So here's user text 1, repetition 1. I'm going to do an option drag on here. And I'm going to say that this is repetition 2 through 2. And then I'm going to do something unbelievably fancy. I'm going to shrink these up a little bit. And then I'm going to say that this one is repetition 3 through 5. Not 35, 5. So this is going to now show 3 fields, and I can specify whether they're going to be horizontal or vertical. They're vertical now, and this is horizontal. And I'm just going to go with vertical. So this is all actually one field that's got 3 slots. And before I go back to browse, I'm just going to, so we can see it, put a solid red line around it. And so now we can see that I've put the data in those fields. And although it looks like they've all got the same data in there, they don't actually. So I'm gonna, looks like we were experimenting with some odd data there. So I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's all one text field because it's got 8 repetitions. Um, so just know that if you feel like there's not enough, there's actually more than you think on the available fields. So those are the user fields. Customizing. So we just, in that instance there, did a little bit of customizing. You can do some of that basic stuff yourself. Um, and if you need something more advanced, we can help you with that if you're on our annual support. If we can get it done in 5, 10, 15 minutes, we will do that for you. Best to call into tech support if you have questions about that. Sometimes on those situations, we'll actually need to um, do better than remote desktop access. Like right now, you guys are remotely viewing my desktop. Sometimes we do that with you when we're doing tech support. Sometimes we need to log directly into your files on your server. And in those scenarios, we'll ask you to open up a port on your router, or actually more accurately, what's called forward a port, and that's port 5003 on your router. And that's going to allow us to get in and take a look at your server and open the files for any kind of customization. Sometimes we'll ask you to mail the files, email them, or FTP them to us so we can do the work and get them back to you. So I think that is the end of chapter 4. And we're actually at about the end of our time today too, conveniently. So I'm not seeing any additional questions. Anybody have any additional questions they want to throw at us? That's Studio Suite Basics. Well, thanks for joining today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to give us a call. We're here to help. Look forward to talking to you soon. Oh, next week's webinar is going to be on equipment rental. And using barcodes, we're going to talk about equipment, obviously, but also equipment pools, equipment collections, and how to use those in projects. And that'll be next Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. And we'll send out a blast prior to that. Thanks for joining. We'll talk soon.